Less than half a month until the wedding. The money I had painstakingly saved for the wedding reception/celebration and renting a wedding dress vanished. I was so anxious I almost jumped into the river, only to discover that my fiancé, David Thompson, had taken the money to buy a 30-gram gold necklace for the woman he truly loved. At the jewelry store entrance, crying, I confronted him. David Thompson, I didn't even dare ask you for wedding jewelry. Why would you spend all our money to buy a necklace for Ashley? Before David Thompson could answer, muggers on motorcycles suddenly attacked. The next second, in order to protect the gold necklace in his hand, he actually pushed me out to took the knife for her. I was stabbed 3 times, and it took 5 hours of emergency surgery to save my life. Waking up from the hospital bed, the first thing I did was call Emily. I want to try heading south to join an international company/multinational corporation, MNC, in Atlanta. After I called Emily, she immediately agreed. I breathed a sigh of relief and returned to the hospital room. As soon as I entered, David Thompson was in the hospital room, frowning and looking at me with a cold smile, my face pale as I clutched my stomach. It was just a minor procedure. Who are you trying to get pity from? Isn't it annoying constantly putting on this act to bother me and Ashley? David Thompson started grilling me with a barrage of questions. I didn't say anything, watching him. 3 knives aimed directly at my abdomen, one missed rupturing my liver by a millimeter. As a doctor, he knew better than anyone how severe my injuries were, yet he called them minor. David Thompson, my childhood sweethearts, who used to be heartbroken over even a small cut on my hand, had truly changed long ago. I should have seen it sooner. Nurse Susan, unable to stand by, came over to help me. Dr. Thompson's just worried about you, that's why his tone is off. You must be in a lot of pain after the stitches. I'll get you some painkillers later. I was about to nod and say thank you, but David Thompson answered for me, no, she doesn't need them. That medicine would be better used on a dog than her. Nurse Susan, you can go now. Nurse Susan gave me a sympathetic look and left. David Thompson squinted and handed me a bag he was holding. Inside the bag was a dress. I specifically bought a dress for you, consider it compensation. Once you take this, you can't cause trouble for Ashley or spread bad rumors about her. Looking at the dress in front of me, I almost burst out laughing. No wonder Dr. Thompson, who was supposedly in another hospital room with a severely frightened Ashley, suddenly showed up in my room. I thought he'd had a change of heart, but it turned out he was here to shut me up with a bribe. He was terrified of Ashley getting even slightly hurt. I looked down at the dress. The one he gave me was the one Ashley didn't want. Because Ashley had bragged to me about it. David specially had a friend from Shanghai bring me a dress, but I didn't like the pattern, so I didn't take it. I told him I preferred a gold necklace. I looked at the dress, clenching my fingers. If it were before, my temper would have made me confront David Thompson, crying and going crazy. But this time, I looked at the dress and nodded. Thank you for the dress. Don't worry, I won't cause Ashley any trouble. David Thompson smiled at me, pleased with my rare compliance. He reached out his hand, wanting to hold mine and be close to me like before. When we were secretly dating and at our sweetest, David Thompson loved holding my hand the most. He used to tell me, holding your hand, Sarah Davis, makes me feel completely at peace. I want to hold your hand forever and never let go. And every time he held my hand, I felt incredibly sweet. I always felt like David Thompson loved me the most at those moments. But this time, when he reached for me, I instinctively pulled away. Seeing David Thompson's frown, I said lightly, the knife didn't just stab my abdomen, it cut my hand too. It hurts a bit. A flicker of guilt crossed David Thompson's eyes. He smiled at me, and after a long silence, he said, just rest. I'm not on call tonight, I'll stay with you. He didn't finish. Ashley's best friend from the next room burst in. Dr. Thompson, Ashley's crying again, scared by that attacker. You need to go be with her. As soon as David Thompson heard Ashley was crying, he immediately frowned at me and said, Sarah Davis, Ashley is timid. I can't stay with you tonight, I have to go be with her. Don't make a scene. David Thompson was about to launch into a long explanation, just like before. I cut him off directly. Go ahead. David Thompson looked at me with suspicion when he heard me say that. I managed to smile. Before, every time Ashley played the damsel in distress, she would call David Thompson away just when I needed him the most. And every time David Thompson chose Ashley, I would relentlessly insist he couldn't go. I wanted to prove that David Thompson, my childhood sweethearts, loved me, so I would cling to him. But not anymore. I repeated myself to David Thompson, go ahead. David Thompson didn't think twice, nodded, and left without looking back. David Thompson and I were childhood sweethearts. Our parents were co-workers. David Thompson and I grew up together since we were 3 years old. Elementary school, middle school, high school. We were there for each other during the most important times. Later, we even went to college together. Naturally, we ended up together and started secretly dating. But everything changed after we started college. His gaze was gradually drawn to a girl in our class, Ashley, whose parents had both passed away. At first, David Thompson helped Ashley out of pity, but later things changed. He started protecting Ashley everywhere, buying her clothes, helping her with tuition, giving her gifts. And every time I argued with him, he would say, I just feel sorry for her, don't overthink it. We're just classmates, can't you be less petty? After graduation, David Thompson was assigned to work as a doctor in a hospital in a small town. I, on the other hand, got an opportunity to stay and teach at Boston University. But I refused. I was afraid a long-distance relationship would make David Thompson break up with me, so I resolutely followed him to this small town. That's how David Thompson's parents found out about our relationship. They immediately prepared for us to get engaged. David Thompson didn't object because Ashley chose the job assigned by the school after graduation. David's parents rented a house for us, with a room for each of us. Without Ashley around, our relationship seemed to return to how it was before. But unfortunately, I couldn't find a job in this small town. During that year I was unemployed, I revolved around David Thompson every day. I worked hard, saving money by being frugal, preparing to marry him. But Ashley came to rely on David Thompson a year later. She reappeared, saying her workplace had fired her. To comfort her, David Thompson secretly took the money I had saved from being frugal for our wedding and bought Ashley the gold necklace. Crying, I confronted him. He looked at me coldly. If we don't have the money, can't we just postpone the wedding? It's not like I'm not marrying you. What are you so anxious about? Ashley is so miserable now. Shouldn't I take care of her when she comes to me? And now, to protect Ashley's gold necklace, he used me to took the knife for her. In his eyes, my life was worth less than Ashley's necklace. I finally gave up hope. More than 10 years of being together turned out to be just a dream. I took a deep breath and opened the letter paper. I started writing to Sarah's parents, telling them I was calling off the engagement. David Thompson's push was very forceful. My wounds were deep. I stayed in the hospital for a full 2 weeks before I could barely get out of bed. And during those 2 weeks, David Thompson, who worked at this very hospital, never showed up once. Hospital colleagues said David Thompson took time off because of a family emergency. I knew that was a lie, of course. The next day, I ran into a neighbor from home at the hospital. Seeing me, he asked with a surprised look, Sarah Davis, why are you at the hospital? David Thompson told us you were upset after running into some muggers and that he took you out of town for a trip. He even asked me to keep an eye on his house. Hearing that, I instantly understood David Thompson had taken Ashley away on a trip. The dull ache in my heart quickly faded. I no longer cared what David Thompson and Ashley were doing. I told the neighbor a few lies to smooth things over. Reputation was very important in that era. David's parents had been good to me. Even if I wasn't with him, I didn't want him to lose his job because of me. I stayed at the hospital for a few more days before finally returning home. David Thompson and I were engaged because our families had agreed. David's parents and Sarah's parents had pitched in together to rent a house for us here. David Thompson and I had lived together after graduation, but in separate rooms. When I got home, I was surprised to see wedding photos on the table. Ashley was wearing a wedding dress and leaning against David Thompson, looking happy, while David Thompson was wearing a suit, holding Ashley tightly with a bright smile. I had imagined taking wedding photos with David Thompson countless times. But now, wedding photos of him and Ashley were on the table. David Thompson opened the door and saw me looking at his and Ashley's wedding photos. His voice sounded a bit guilty. "Sarah Davis, you're back? You didn't even tell me you were discharged. Don't read too much into these wedding photos. Ashley has a friend who's a photographer, and she just took these for practice." I scoffed at his explanation. I carefully put the wedding photos back in their place and nodded, saying, "Oh, it's fine. I know you were just messing around. They look quite good." My words choked David Thompson up. His face paled, and he somewhat angrily picked up the picture from the table and turned it face down. Then he said to me, "Sarah Davis, don't worry. Just wait a bit longer, and I'll apply for a marriage license right away. We'll get married soon." I looked at him and nodded dismissively. Okay. Then I went back to my room, quickly packed a few things, and got ready to go out and buy a train ticket to Atlanta. Emily had already made arrangements with the people in Atlanta. The international company/multinational corporation, MNC, there gave me an interview opportunity. Excited, I prepared to leave to buy the ticket. On the way, I'd mail the letter I wrote to Sarah's parents. Seeing I was about to go out, David Thompson uncharacteristically held my arm solicitously and said, "Sarah Davis, you're still injured, riding a bike isn't convenient. Where are you going?" "I'll take you." I frowned, about to refuse. How could I let him know I was going to Atlanta? Just then, Ashley walked right in through the door. "David, didn't you promise to take me shopping today? Let's go. I need something to wear for work tomorrow." David Thompson immediately let go of my arm. He looked at me with a troubled expression. "I helped Ashley find a job in logistics at the hospital. She needs to buy some decent clothes, so I'm going to go with her to look." I looked at him with a cold smile. I had been unemployed for a year because there were no job opportunities in the small town. Several times I had asked him to use his connections to help me find a job at the hospital, but each time he would say with a cold face, "Stop bothering me. You're the one who insisted on coming with me. I don't owe you anything. Find a job yourself." Now that Ashley had just come here to him, he had already helped her find a job. It was a good thing I had finally come to my senses. I looked at David Thompson and smiled. "Go with Ashley. I'm leaving." With that, I turned and left without looking back. Once I had the ticket, I felt relieved. As long as I passed the interview this time, I could finally leave this place for good. The day after I bought the ticket, I packed a few clothes and went to the train station. I didn't say goodbye to David Thompson. I figured he wouldn't care anyway. The interview at the international company/multinational corporation, MNC, wasn't difficult, and I felt well prepared, so it went smoothly overall. When I received the acceptance letter, the interviewer smiled and said to me, "Sarah Davis, you can start work next week." Congratulations! I held the acceptance letter, crying tears of joy. I immediately took the train back to Boston. I thought Sarah's parents should have replied to my letter by now. As soon as I got home and opened my room, I saw Ashley sleeping on my bed, wearing my pajamas. Ashley saw me. Seemingly flustered but actually with a provocative look, she got out of bed and smiled at me, saying, "Sarah Davis, David Thompson said this room belongs to me now. So what if you were childhood sweethearts? I just have to lift a finger, and you'll be sent packing." I ignored Ashley and walked out of the room. David Thompson was cooking something in the kitchen. David Thompson was startled when he saw me and was about to speak. I cut him off and asked, "What's going on with my room?" David Thompson was taken aback for a moment, then said, "Ashley was frightened and didn't dare stay in the dormitory alone these past few days, so I let her stay here at the house for now. The house is too small, you can go stay at the Willow Creek Inn for a few days." David Thompson said, looking as if it was the most natural thing in the world. I quietly stared at David Thompson for 2 seconds. Then I nodded, "I'll stay at the Willow Creek Inn." David Thompson's fingers paused as he lifted the lid off a pot. He looked at me twice before seeming to remember something and asked, where have you been these past few days? Still playing the running away game? I bet you're still throwing a tantrum because I had you took the knife for her for Ashley's necklace. It was just one stab. Do you have to make such a big deal out of it? Looking at David Thompson's distorted face, I just felt disgusted. I scoffed. I went out for something, don't worry, I'm not throwing a tantrum. After saying that, I left the kitchen and kept looking for something in the living room, head down. I searched everywhere but couldn't find what I was looking for. I asked David Thompson, did Sarah's parents send me a letter recently? David Thompson's distorted face immediately showed a hint of guilt, and his eyes flickered. Yeah, they did. But I accidentally opened it. My fingers clenched slightly, and I looked up to ask him, you didn't read it, did you? Guilt was in David Thompson's eyes, but he firmly shook his head. I didn't read it. I nodded and opened the letter. Sarah's parents agreed immediately after learning I was calling off the engagement. Sarah's parents had always known about Ashley. They had advised me several times to leave David Thompson sooner, but I hadn't listened. Now that I had finally come to my senses and was about to start a new job, Sarah's parents were naturally happy. David Thompson and I were engaged based on a verbal agreement between our families. Now we just needed to exchange the tokens of engagement back. I heard David's parents were very surprised about this. They declared they would come to Boston to properly reprimand David Thompson and then apologize to me once they finished their current work. But Sarah's parents politely refused. At the end of the letter, Sarah's parents mentioned they had sent me some money and told me to buy whatever I wanted. I searched the envelope again, but there was nothing there. I looked up and asked David Thompson, who was still busy in the kitchen, the money Sarah's parents sent in the envelope is missing. Did you take it? As soon as the words left my mouth, Ashley walked out of the room wearing pajamas. David, is the seafood ready? I'm starving. All right, all right. David Thompson finally came out of the kitchen, carrying a small plate of seafood. Seafood was quite expensive / a luxury item in this era. David Thompson couldn't possibly afford this on his salary. I clenched my fingers. David Thompson carefully placed the seafood on the table and looked at Ashley with a doting expression, saying, little greedy cat. The seafood's ready, eat up. Then David Thompson frowned at me. I took the money from the envelope to buy seafood. I'll pay you back when I get paid, don't worry. I looked at David Thompson coldly. I opened my mouth, but finally closed it. At that moment, I had no energy to argue with him. Anyway, this would be the last time he could take my things to give to Ashley. I raised an eyebrow at David Thompson. Okay, I'm going to pack my suitcase. I went into the room and quickly packed my suitcase. After finishing, I turned around, ready to leave. I didn't say goodbye to David Thompson, who was busy peeling shrimp for Ashley. I figured this would be the last time I'd ever see him. I also didn't expect him to see me off now. But David Thompson saw I was leaving. This time, he actually grabbed the hand I was using to drag my suitcase and said, wait, Sarah Davis. Wait, Sarah Davis, your injury isn't fully healed, is it? Let me help you with your luggage and take you to the Willow Creek Inn. My luggage was quite heavy, there was no need to make things harder on myself. Finally, I nodded and said, okay. Maybe David Thompson felt a little guilty about what had just happened. After calling a taxi, he kept talking non-stop in the vehicle. Ashley will only be staying at the house for 2 months, then she'll leave. But don't worry, I've already applied for a marriage license. Once Ashley feels better and your wounds have fully healed, I'll submit it. Then he looked at me and gave me a gentle smile I hadn't seen in a long time. Oh, right, I had a friend buy you a wedding dress from abroad. I've also looked into the wedding reception / celebration. You'll look beautiful in this wedding dress at the wedding. I was stunned for a moment listening to David Thompson. I used to love Western-style weddings and really wanted a wedding dress. But I only ever dreamed of renting one. Every time I mentioned it, David Thompson would be impatient. Renting a wedding dress is so expensive. Just buy a red dress to wear for the wedding. I couldn't believe he had actually asked a friend to buy me a wedding dress this time. But I didn't need it anymore. I nodded absent-mindedly. When we arrived at the Willow Creek Inn, I learned that the rooms were all occupied because they were hosting international visitors. The staff apologized. If you need a room urgently, there's only a small one left, but the conditions aren't great. I went in to see the room. The conditions weren't just bad, it was run down and tiny. As soon as I entered, I saw cockroaches everywhere. I frowned slightly at the sight. David Thompson had a slight germophobia, so he blurted out, "What kind of hellhole is this? Is this place fit for humans?" Then David Thompson seemed to realize what he'd said and looked at me awkwardly. I smiled and said to David Thompson, "Thank you for bringing me here. You should head back now." David Thompson looked at me and opened his mouth. But in the end, he just said, "Sarah Davis, just bear with it here for a while. I'll come and pick you up to come home later. I really have applied for a marriage license. I'll turn it into the hospital when I get back." Looking at David Thompson like that, I finally just gave a cold laugh. Okay, I decided it was better to tell him about ling off the engagement after I had completely left this place. 10 days later, the day I was supposed to leave for Atlanta finally arrived. The sun was shining, and the air felt exceptionally fresh. I was in a great mood and asked the Willow Creek Inn to bring me a hearty breakfast. After finishing breakfast, I took my suitcase and prepared to go to the train station. But I didn't expect to see David Thompson with a cold face and Ashley crying beside him just as I stepped out of the Willow Creek Inn. Ashley looked at me, holding my suitcase, and cried, "Sarah Davis, you stole my gold necklace. Are you trying to run away?" I ignored Ashley and frowned at David Thompson, confused. David Thompson sneered, "Ashley's gold necklace is missing. It disappeared the day you packed your things and left. Hand over the gold necklace now and apologize to Ashley, and I'll let bygones be bygones." I looked at David Thompson in disbelief. "David Thompson, are you saying I stole Ashley's gold necklace? We grew up together. Is that what you think of me? Are you crazy, David Thompson? Even if I were, don't forget the money used to buy that necklace was money you stole from me. I didn't even make a fuss back then, and now you think I'd steal the necklace?" Seeing me question him, David Thompson's eyes flickered, and he didn't say a word. But Ashley fiercely grabbed my hand right then. Her voice was extremely loud. "Sarah, I know you've always hated me, that's why you stole the gold necklace. But I really love this necklace. Please, just give it back to me. I'm begging you." Ashley's loud cry, right in front of the Willow Creek Inn, immediately drew a crowd. People started pointing and whispering about me. "Oh my God! Look at her, dressed so nicely, and she's a thief. Take her to the police station. Stealing a gold necklace. How crazy do you have to be to steal something so expensive? She's going to go to jail." More and more people gathered. A flash of triumph appeared in Ashley's eyes. Ashley wanted to completely ruin me. In this era, even if I hadn't stolen anything, just being accused of being a thief would completely destroy my reputation in this area. Yet, facing this situation, David Thompson didn't stop Ashley at all. "Sarah Davis, hand over the necklace now, and I won't let Ashley call the police. Open your suitcase now, and I'll search it. Then we'll know." After saying that, David Thompson reached to grab my suitcase. I clutched my suitcase tightly. "I'll say it again, I didn't steal it." Hardening my heart, I said, "If you don't believe me, call the police." But David Thompson ignored my words. He looked at me and said, "Sarah Davis, stop making a scene. I see this is just you being angry about taking the knife for Ashley, that's why you stole the necklace. Hand it over." After saying that, he fiercely tried to snatch my suitcase again. Seeing I was still holding on tight, he narrowed his eyes, glanced at my abdomen, and then punched me right on my wound. "Let go!" The wound flared with agonizing pain, and I cried out, immediately letting go of the suitcase. David Thompson didn't even look at me as he opened my suitcase and rummaged through it. In his haste, he even pulled out my acceptance letter, but he didn't look at it and just tossed it aside. David Thompson searched my entire suitcase, but didn't find the necklace. At this point, Ashley's eyes darted around, and she cried, "Maybe it's a mistake, maybe Sarah hid it. Let's just drop it, David. I don't feel well, I want to go home. David Thompson immediately stepped forward and supported Ashley. Then he turned to me and said, "Since we didn't find it, let's just drop it. I'm taking Ashley to the hospital now." With that, David Thompson put his arm around Ashley and walked away without looking back. I was left standing there like a clown. The crowd gradually dispersed. I looked at David Thompson's retreating back and gave a cold laugh. David Thompson had successfully extinguished the last flicker of feeling I had for him. Now, I finally felt nothing for him anymore. I threw the goodbye letter in my hand into the trash can. I boarded the plane heading to Atlanta. Working at the new company felt great. I didn't have to revolve around David Thompson every day. I didn't have to stay somewhere I couldn't find a job because of him. All the changes made me feel completely at ease. After I had been in Atlanta for 3 months, I received a letter from David Thompson. David Thompson somehow managed to find out my address in Atlanta. In his letter, he first complained about how difficult it was to find my contact information and said I shouldn't have left without a word, being so heartless. Then he apologized to me. He said he didn't agree to break off the engagement. He had found the gold necklace in Ashley's room, he had misunderstood me, he was sorry, and I shouldn't hold a grudge about him taking the knife for her for the necklace either, as those were minor things. He also said he had pulled several strings to finally find me an internship at a hospital. But because my major wasn't a perfect match, I would only be a temporary worker and shouldn't mind. He hoped I would immediately quit my job in Atlanta and return to him. He would make sure Ashley moved out of the house as soon as possible. Finally, he also enclosed a few $100s in the letter. I kept the money, it was mine anyway. I wrote him back. But the letter only contained 2 words, "Don't bother." I thought that by replying to David Thompson like that, he would understand and stop bothering me. But David Thompson didn't listen to me. Every month after that, he would write me letters. They always repeated the same things. And there was always a line saying he was taking time off from the hospital now and would come to Atlanta to see me as soon as possible. Of course, there would be some money at the end. And every time I saw these letters, I would take the MO. Nay, and then throw the letter into the trash can. 6 months after coming to Atlanta, a coworker introduced me to a blind date. My coworker said this blind date was a government employee, a good person, graduated from a prestigious university, and was quite handsome, and suggested I meet him. Anyway, I had nothing else to do, so I agreed to meet him. This blind date's name was Michael. Just as my coworker said, he was excellent in every way. He was also very polite to me. Eventually, as we talked, I realized he was actually my high school classmate. But he had only been at our high school for a year, which was why I didn't have much of an impression of him. I felt a bit awkward about this at the dinner table. But Michael laughed heartily. "Sarah Davis, even though you don't remember me well, I remember you very clearly. On the first day of freshman year, I felt dizzy, had heat stroke, and fainted. You ran quite a distance to buy me a popsicle. That day, I remember you were out of breath and covered in sweat when you gave me the popsicle, and I didn't even have a chance to say thank you." Michael's words jogged my memory. I remembered that after buying him the popsicle, I had actually wanted to take him to the infirmary, but David Thompson had pulled me away, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him much. Michael's memory made both of us feel much more relaxed. After dinner, Michael walked me to the bus stop. As we parted, he said to me, "I hope we can enjoy spending time together as friends in the future." After that meeting, I had a good impression of Michael, and we naturally continued to spend time together. As we did, I discovered Michael and I had many common interests. We would like the same books, the same movies. We always had endless topics to talk about. Even when I was with David Thompson, who was my childhood sweethearts, we didn't have this many shared topics. Slowly, we naturally became boyfriend and girlfriend. On the love front, things were flourishing. My career also became very fruitful. Not only did I get a promotion at the company, but I also bought the latest issued stock in West Coast during a business trip there. Michael also bought stock with me. We never expected the stock to make us a fortune. As a result, Michael and I quickly bought a house and a car each in Atlanta. I established residency/roots in the city in Atlanta. The double harvest in love and career made me gradually and completely forget David Thompson. It was as if David Thompson had never existed in my memory. Another half a year passed. Michael proposed to me. Michael gave me a thoughtful proposal. And on the day he proposed, he also told me a secret. Sarah Davis, I actually had a crush on you in high school. It's just a shame that back then you had your childhood sweethearts, David Thompson, by your side, and I didn't dare confess. Now, fate has brought us back together to meet and fall in love. I hope you'll give me a chance. Michael said, looking at me with incredibly sincere eyes. Looking into Michael's eyes, I remembered all the moments we had shared recently and finally nodded. After that, we got busy preparing for the wedding, meeting parents, and buying gifts. Sarah's parents came to Atlanta and were very pleased with Michael and Michael's parents. They looked at me with satisfaction and said, "Our daughter deserves such a good man. That scoundrel from the past who didn't marry you was unlucky. We've already cut ties with that scoundrel's parents. Anyone our daughter dislikes, our whole family dislikes." Seeing Sarah's parents so happy made me feel even more certain that I had made the right decision. The following days, Michael and I were incredibly busy every day. But just 1 week before our wedding, David Thompson appeared. Not seeing David Thompson for over half a year, he seemed like a different person. He was terribly thin now, and the whole person looked haggard. Actually, I had already heard the latest news about David Thompson from friends. The incident where David Thompson stood up for Ashley at the Willow Creek Inn and accused me of stealing the gold necklace had caused a huge stir. Many people had overheard our conversation. Ashley thought it would ruin me forever, but she didn't expect me to disappear completely. The fire ultimately burned her and David Thompson. Before long, people pieced together the whole story, one person adding to another. The gossip spread the matter until everyone knew about it. The truth everyone finally learned was that David Thompson took my money to buy Ashley a gold necklace, then not only kicked me, his fiancée, out of the house but also falsely accused me of stealing Ashley's gold necklace. This matter eventually reached David Thompson's workplace. Although Ashley claimed David Thompson and I had broken off the engagement, David Thompson actually denied it. Competition at the hospital was already fierce, and reputation mattered most in that era. So David Thompson was directly marginalized at the hospital. And Ashley, who had been hired for a logistics position through David Thompson's connections, was directly fired. Ashley cried and begged David Thompson to marry her. But David Thompson actually kicked Ashley out of the house. But how could Ashley let him go? Now, the two of them were making a complete mess of things, causing a huge scandal. I heard David Thompson had become the biggest joke in the entire town. That's why David Thompson hadn't come to bother me for so long. It surprised me greatly that he had actually tracked me down now. David Thompson was even wearing the sweater I knitted for him today. I remembered knitting that sweater for a whole month. It was my birthday gift for David Thompson. But back then, David Thompson and Ashley had already become friends, and he had never worn the sweater I gave him. I was surprised he was wearing it to see me this time. But what did it matter? David Thompson looked at me with a joyful expression and said, "Sarah Davis, I can finally come and see you." His voice was trembling and a little hesitant as he spoke to me. But I looked at his face and saw no emotion. I looked at him with a cold smile. "I remember I told you in my letter not to bother me. You've paid me back the money you owed, and the engagement is off. I don't know why you're here looking for me or what else you want." David Thompson didn't show any anger at my cold attitude. He reached out a hand towards me but ultimately didn't dare take mine and said, "I know I was truly out of line before. But Sarah Davis, after all this time, can't you forgive me? I've already cut ties with Ashley. For the sake of all these years we were childhood sweethearts, please forgive me just one more time. Can we get back together and get married right away? Don't worry, I'll pay for the wedding this time." After so long, David Thompson finally said the words I had always wanted to hear. But hearing them now, I only felt sickened. I frowned in disgust and stepped back. Then I gave a cold laugh. "David Thompson, how shameless can you be to say something like that? Why would I drop everything and go back with you? Before, it was because I loved you that I was willing to give up the job assigned by the school and follow you to the place you wanted to be, with nothing. In the end, I even became a pathetic creature stuck at home taking care of you and revolving around you every day. But now, I touched the car behind me. Today, I have established residency/roots in the city, a house, and a car in the city. What makes you think you have the right to ask me to give all of this up and go back with you? David Thompson's face immediately turned paper white when he heard my words. He opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off directly, and there's one more thing I need to tell you. I'm getting married soon. David Thompson's face became even paler when he heard me say that. But he clearly didn't believe me. He said to me, "Sarah Davis, don't joke around." "Sarah Davis," a voice interrupted David Thompson in the next second. My fiancé, Michael, appeared behind me. Michael took my hand and looked at David Thompson with a heavy gaze. I immediately returned his grip and, smiling, looked at David Thompson and said, "This is my fiancé, Michael. We're getting married very soon. The wedding is next month." David Thompson finally believed what I said when he saw Michael and I holding hands. His voice trembled even more than before. He looked at me in disbelief. "Sarah Davis, how can you get married? How can you marry someone else? No, this isn't possible. It hasn't been that long. You must be lying to me." Then, as if remembering something, he glared fiercely at Michael and said, "You're Michael, right? Do you know what kind of relationship Sarah Davis and I have? We were childhood sweethearts, we were young." I looked at Michael with some worry. I hadn't told him about David Thompson yet. But David Thompson didn't get to finish his last word. Michael cut him off directly. Michael's voice was incredibly cold. "So what? You hurt her badly before, and now she doesn't love you anymore. If I were you, I'd get lost." Looking at Michael at that moment, I knew I had chosen the right person. I took Michael's hand, didn't spare David Thompson another glance, and just said to Michael, "Let's go home." I thought after that, David Thompson wouldn't have the nerve to bother me again. But I didn't expect David Thompson to start haunting me after that day. He followed me every day, looking at me with a mournful expression. Whenever he found a chance to approach me, he would say, "Sarah Davis, I was really wrong. Please, just give me one more chance. If you forgive me, I'll immediately resign from the hospital and come to Atlanta to be with you. This time, I'm willing to give up my job for you. I can stay home and take care of you. We were together for so many years, it can't just end like this, it can't just be over." And facing David Thompson like that, I would only reply with one phrase, "Get lost." After telling David Thompson to get lost countless times, he finally gave up. He never appeared in my sight again, and my wedding proceeded as planned. I was about to become the happiest bride in the world. At the wedding ceremony, after Michael's heartfelt vows to me, we exchanged rings. We received blessings from family and friends. Everything felt like a beautiful dream, everything was moving towards happiness. But just as the wedding was halfway through, a figure suddenly rushed out. "Bitch! You ruined my life. Go to hell!" It was Ashley. Ashley came charging towards me with a knife. Ashley was incredibly fast, and everyone was stunned. Not far away, Michael, who was socializing with friends, wanted to rush over and push me away. He shouted at me, "Look out! Sarah Davis!" But he was too far away and couldn't reach me in time. I closed my eyes. I thought I would definitely be stabbed again this time. But the pain I expected didn't come. A figure took the knife for me. It was David Thompson. David Thompson had secretly hidden in the crowd to watch my wedding. David Thompson grabbed me and used his body to shield me from Ashley's stab. As he fell, he softly said to me, "This time, I finally didn't let her hurt you again." The stab Ashley inflicted was severe. Much more serious than mine had been. This knife went right through David Thompson's abdomen, damaging his internal organs. David Thompson was in the hospital and underwent emergency surgery for a full 5 hours before they managed to save him. And I, out of humanitarian concern, went to the hospital to see him. In the hospital room, David Thompson looked at me weakly and said, "I'm a doctor, I knew being stabbed hurt, but I never expected it to hurt this much. Now I finally know how much you must have hated me when I made you take the knife for Ashley and Prot. CT that necklace. Sarah Davis, it's right that you never forgive me. I deserved all of it. I was truly wrong, ridiculously wrong. I completely ruined the feelings we had as childhood sweethearts for so many years." David Thompson's pale face suddenly crumpled, and he started to cry loudly. I watched him like this without a sound. Even though he had taken the knife from me now, the hurt he had caused me before was indelible. I wouldn't go soft because of this. After crying for a while, David Thompson started coughing violently. I got up and poured him a glass of water. He took a sip, and a flicker of light appeared in his eyes. "Sarah Davis, I'm sorry. In this life, I truly only ever loved you. But I don't know why, after Ashley appeared, I started hurting you constantly. At first, I really just pitied Ashley, and then..." He paused. "I'm truly sorry, Sarah Davis. I truly regret it now. Can you forgive me?" David Thompson stared at me without moving, as if I were the last straw he could grasp in his life. As if one word of forgiveness from me would grant him complete liberation. But I looked into his eyes for a long time and finally left without saying anything. Later, I heard that Ashley was arrested after stabbing David Thompson. Ashley would likely spend the rest of her life in prison. And David Thompson suffered lasting health issues from that point on. He resigned from the hospital and went back to his hometown. His parents kept urging him to find a girl from the same village to marry, but he refused them all. Later, afraid of the shame, his parents moved with him to another place. My married life, naturally, was very happy. Michael was incredibly good to me in every way, and before long, we had twins. With the twins, my life became even richer and more colorful. Living with the person I loved, I felt like every breath I took was filled with happiness. One day later on, I received a package from a remote small town. The sender was David Thompson. I okayed at the package, momentarily stunned. Just then, the twins shouted loudly from behind me, "Mommy! Mommy!" Hearing them, I threw the package into the trash can and immediately replied, "Coming." And